Hey everybody, this is Kasey Hope from Pizzazz Art Studio, back again to do some fun drawing and painting with y'all. So today we are doing just a very simple flower. We have done this design a lot of years for all types of things. We've done it for Mother's Day on canvas. We've done them for birthday parties. There's lots of different ways to change up the color scheme and to have this look really great. So yes, I'm using watercolor paper, but you can use whatever you've got. So I'm actually using a lot of different supplies today. It's all watercolor paper-y stuff, but I kind of have an array of different things I'm using. So watercolor paper, I got my pencil and a black permanent marker. I always want to use my black permanent marker if I'm going to be adding any kind of water. So all of this outline is with the permanent marker. And then I've got two different color palettes. So I've got my neon colors. I love those for the bright pinks and the yellows and the greens. It just really has a really cool thing. And then I've also got my Crayola washable palette. It's got some really cool colors in here too. In particular, the blue. I love the Crayola blue. And then for my black, I'm going to be using a black washable marker. Now, you might think, why don't I just use the black watercolor? I have just found that the black watercolor looks great compared to the pigment that we can get with this black washable marker. So I'm using this Crayola Super Tip right here for the black. So those are my supplies. That does not mean you have to be using the exact same thing that I'm using. I'm just telling you what this is in case you say, hey, well, my pink doesn't look like that pink, or my black doesn't look like that. This is what I'm using, but you use whatever you've got. I'm going to draw my vase right down here. And I want you to look at the shape really quickly. All it is a straight line across, and it comes down at an angle. It doesn't go straight down. So it's angle, angle. Okay, so it's all straight lines. All right, so we're gonna come over, straight line, straight-ish. I mean, we ain't gonna be using a ruler. I mean, you can, you can. I just don't like using a ruler. Okay, so we've got our straight line across. Then we're gonna come down at an angle like this and this, okay? And then if you want polka dots, you don't have to have polka dots, but if you want polka dots, you're just gonna go ahead and start kind of doing these half polka dots wherever they fit. All right, so kind of half polka dots, full polka dots, fill this in. You could also do stripes if you wanted to. It could be a solid one color, so you can design this however you like. All right, next up, it's just a very simple circle and curve, but let's study this for a second. We see the circle. I want you to notice this. These lines do not come all the way back to the circle. That's one mistake that some people might make. They might go and come all the way back and go and come all the way back. It's just a shape out here, never touching that circle, okay? It stays out here. And it's also big. So you want to be big and fun with this, all right? So we are going to start with our smaller circle. And then we'll start up here. Remember, we're never touching the circle. We're just going like this around. And one tip, if you're nervous about doing it, just kind of do it in the air a few times. That might make you feel a little bit better. All right, so here we go. Woo! All right, it's fun. It's really fun. It's almost like just a giant cloud or something. All right, next up, you're gonna do a straight line down and then just curve out that way. We're gonna start right here and curve out that way. And that's it. That is your flower drawing. Again, big and bold is one way just to make it really fun. So I'm gonna now take my Sharpie and I'm going to just outline all of my pencil line. Remember, if you have two markers, you are using the permanent one right here. The only reason we would use this on this watercolor paper, this washable one, is when we want to turn it into watercolor. And right now, we don't want this to be turned into watercolor. All right, so we have done a good outline of everything, and now we are going to start laying in some color. So I'm going to wait and do my black last, but I'm gonna do my pink in a couple of different layers. I like to use 2 different size paintbrushes when I'm painting. We got a big one that's like a size 14 and a smaller size 6. And I just like that because sometimes it has small areas, sometimes I have big areas. So you'll see me kind of swapping back and forth just depending on what size of area I'm painting. So I'm gonna get this yellow in, fun neon yellow. And then I'm gonna swap sizes of my paintbrush and start with my pink. Now I'm gonna do just a light, oh, isn't that so fun? We love this bright pink. I'm gonna do a light wash because I'm gonna let this dry while I go to my background, and then I'm gonna come back and layer on top of this with just some subtle, you may have seen it here. You see how there's just subtle little designs? That comes from letting that first layer dry and then coming back on top. And of course, you do not have to do this, the colors that I am. Never, never. We like to provide you with inspiration, and you can either follow along exactly, or you can add your own twist. We like it all. We just want you to get creative. Creativity has proven so many proven benefits, from critical thinking and problem solving to relaxation. It's just bringing you joy. There are so many benefits from creating. And so with these quick little tutorials that we are doing, we want to show you, you don't have to have super fancy supplies. You don't have to have a ton of time. It's not taking hours upon hours to sit down and create. You can just, just have a few little things and set aside a little bit of time, and you have a whole lot of coolness that you can create. All right, so I did my pink. I'm not gonna overwork it. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna give you a little bit of my green right on here. Okay, I will go ahead and do my blue. Now I'm gonna be using my Crayola blue. I really like this Crayola blue. Gonna add some water to it. And I'm going to begin with just kind of work around these edges. And then I'm going to use plain water to kind of pull it in. So here's the edges. Now I'm gonna get plain water while it's still wet, and that kind of helps to fade it in. And I'm not getting right up next to everything because I don't want all the colors to blend, and it's just really not necessary. You can just kind of have a little wash of color in here. It does not have to be like perhaps when you used to color a coloring book and you feel like all of the white has to be covered. That's not necessarily the case right here. It can be if you want to, but you've got to be really mindful of not letting this wet touch that wet, or else they'll all bleed together. Which, as you know, we can turn it into a beautiful oops. If you make a mistake, we can make it look good. I'm just saying, if you can help it, we're gonna try not to let them touch. Okay, so now I'm putting some more of our blue around the edge. Maybe just a little bit here. And then I'm gonna come back with plain water. So now I've just got plain water. I'm gonna kind of touch those edges and pull it in. Now notice I did one side at a time. The reason I did that is because I didn't want this side to dry before I came back to it with the plain water, because this water is blending this like this, it's fading it in because it's all still wet. If I were to come back after it had dried and just tried to add water, it wouldn't have this blendy effect. It would just stay there. We'd be rubbing water over it and it wouldn't be moving. All right, looking good. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna go down here to the pot. You don't have to do black and white. I just love black and white. Black and white with a pop of color is like my favorite color combination. If you've been to the studio, you know our floors are black and white stripes. We've got black and white striped curtains there, and then we got pops of color everywhere else. That is just what makes me happy. So we are going to take my washable black super tip marker, and I'm gonna kind of get close to around these. I'm gonna leave the circles white. So I will paint right up next to this. And remember, you're not having to fill this in solid, because with this black, it's gonna be really strong once we add the water. Okay, maybe a little bit more. So I'm gonna go to my smaller paintbrush, And I am going to get kind of right up to around the circles and then just blend it out. And again, if you didn't have this, you could have colored this in with marker. I just didn't. My Sharpie would have died by the time I colored all of this on top of my watercolor paper. Since the watercolor paper is kind of tough and got some tooth to it, it would have died. So you could do this with a marker though. You could do this with just paint, with your watercolor paint. It's just oftentimes I find that it's a little bit more gray with the paint. So that's why I'm liking to use something that's a little bit darker so that you get a nice good contrast between the black and the white. All right, so we've got our main color on, and we could stop there, but it's super fun to me just to add a little something, something. I'm gonna get my small brush, and I'm gonna go back to the pink, the same pink that I did, and in here, I am just going to start putting swirls or circles or whatever you want, so it can kind of, so do you see how even though it's the same color, it's showing up different because you can totally layer watercolor like this. So I'm doing S's and swirls and curves, and that's just a little something, what we call adding the pizzazz. We just want to add a little bit more pizzazz than just the plain old color flower. Okay, and then even in the middle, you could even do like a little swirly there if you wanted to. Also with this, inside of the white, if that's looking a little too white, you could do some pink in here. This is my smaller brush. And then maybe, and this is totally optional because your blue might be too wet. You could do a little bit out here too. So there you have it, a super fun, easy drawing and watercolor. So show us what you got. We want to see. All right, see ya.